Hi class. So I am going to do a lesson on the monohybrid genetic problems, the practice problems that I assigned to you this week. I am posting the scans of the solutions, but I thought I would go over them with you using this video lesson. So the first question asks that you determine the gametes produced by the following parents given that axial flowers are dominant to terminal flowers in pea plants. So question 1, the first set of parents were basically big A, and you were supposed to assume that axial flowers are dominant to terminal flowers. So first thing that we want to do is we want to let A represent axial flowers and little a represent terminal flowers. Okay, and if the parents are this double A homozygous dominant genotype, which is big A, they're both going to be with the same genotype. So big A with big A. Obviously, all of the offspring are going to be big A. So this question was kind of a little confusing, I guess, because you were only given one genotype. You weren't given another genotype here of another parent. So I'm assuming that we are looking at the parents with the same genotype as each other. So in this situation, you're going to have 100% with the genotype offspring is going to be big A, and then 100% phenotype of that offspring is going to be axial. They are going to show the axial flower. Then B would be big A, small a, and I'm assuming that both parents are the same. I would do this again, your cross, one parent on one side, another parent on the other side. You have big A, then you have big A, little a, big A, little a, so this one, and then lastly the little a and the little a, and those are your offspring. So this is going to be, oops, what did I do here? Sorry, this is the issues that you have when we are doing stuff online. So I'm just going to do the genotypes. This is obviously the offspring. It's going to basically be big A to 2 big A, small a to 1 little a. And the phenotype ratio is going to be 3 axial flower to 1 terminal flowers, and that is basically your offspring. That's the genotype and phenotypes of the a probability of the genotypes and the phenotypes of the offspring. And then the C says homozygous recessive, and this would mean homozygous recessive would be AA. So I'm assuming that both parents are AA, right? So your cross would be Let's just do it like that. Oops. A, little a, little a, little a, little a. Obviously, all your offspring are going to be. So again, genotype 100% AA, phenotype, the probability is going to be 100% terminal flowers. Okay? Okay. And I just want to go back. Yes. Go back to another slide here. The second question, question number 2, the allele for purple flowers is dominant. So we're going to represent, the capital P is going to represent purple flowers. Oops, purple flowers, because they are dominant. We have to represent that with a capital P. And those purple flowers are dominant to the white flowers. So little p is going to represent the white flowers. Okay, and predict the genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring produced from a cross between a plant with a genotype. So this is where we're going to write down what the parents are. So one parent is going to have the genotype big P, little p, right? And this is, I'm just going to write this here, is heterozygous dominant, just to remind you or review that terminology. So one parent is going to be heterozygous dominant, and the other plant or parent's genotype is homozygous recessive. So homozygous recessive. Okay, and we're going to predict the genotypes and phenotypes of these offspring of these parents. Okay, so we would do a Punnett square again. Big P, little p, that's one parent. Little p is, that's the homozygous recessive parent. We do the Punnett square. Little p, big P, and little p. So the genotypes of offspring, excuse me, genotypes of offspring is going to be 1 big P to 2 little p. And the phenotype of offspring is going to be 1 purple flower to 1 white flower. Okay, and that is the answer to the question number 2. And let's see, how do I get back again? So frustrating. All right, here we go. Let's do this one now. That's question number 3. Green pod color G is dominant. So we're going to represent big G to equal green pod color. And it's dominant to yellow pod color. So little g is equal to yellow pod color. And predict the phenotypes and genotypes of the offspring produced when a plant homozygous for green pods. So homozygous, that means homozygous dominant. So the parents are going to be homozygous green, which is homozygous dominant condition. And this parent is crossed with another parent that is homozygous for yellow pods. So little g, little g. These are the two parents. We do the Punnett square, big G along against little g, and we go through and figure out the probability of all the offspring. And so we're predicting the offspring. So the genotype of the offspring is basically going to be all, or I could also say 100% big G, little g, and phenotype is going to be 100% green pod color. And that's going to be the offspring. Okay, I guess I didn't do that in the previous questions either, but I should really be writing the word offspring genotype here. Okay, and that is that question. And next question, we'll do it on here. And we'll start right there. The next question is number 4. The allele for long wings is dominant to the allele for curly wings. So let's let big L, capital L, represent long wings. Okay, and little l represent curly wings, or lowercase l. And then we're predicting again the genotypes and the phenotypes of offspring resulting from a cross between true fruit flies heterozygous for wing shape. So if their parents are heterozygous, they're both heterozygous, their genotypes are going to be big L with little l, and big L, little l again. So we do the cross, the Punnett squares, and to find out the probability of the genotypes. And you're going to have one big L, one little l, big L, one big L, one little l, another big L, and a little l. Okay, so the offspring genotype, the ratio would be 1 big L to 2 big L, little l, to 1 little l, okay? And the offspring phenotype, and these are, guys, remember, these are just probabilities, okay? We're predicting the probability of having these genotypes and phenotypes, and so we would have 3 long winged to 1 curly wing offspring. Okay, and that is for that question. And we are going to move on to the next one, and that is question 5. We are question 5. The allele for tall pea plants is dominant to the allele for short pea plants. Okay, so let's let big capital T represent tall because it's dominant. Little t will represent short pea plant. Okay, what is the probability that 2 plants heterozygous for height will produce a plant heterozygous for height? Okay, so the both parents we're saying that they're heterozygous. So it's big T, little t times big T, little t. Okay? Because we're talking about height here. Height of plant, okay? And we do the Punnett square, big T, little t, big T, little t. And we're going to have the following offspring, the probability. Okay, and then offspring genotype is 1 big T to 2 big T to 1 little t. Again, this is the, I'm going to write it here, homozygous dominant. Okay, this is your heterozygous, the mix between the two alleles. And this is, again, two alleles are the same, but they're homozygous recessive, lowercase alleles, okay? And then the offspring of the offspring phenotype would be 3 tall to 1 short. Okay, and the question was, we should always write that sentence. I'm just trying to do this quickly for you. It says, what is the probability that two plants that are heterozygous will produce a plant heterozygous for height? So we're talking about genotypes here when they're talking about heterozygous offspring. Then that is basically going to be 50%. Okay, so the probability of two heterozygous plants having a heterozygous offspring is 50%, because this represents 50%, this represents 25%, and this represents 25% as well. Okay, so let's do the next one. And the next one is number 6. The allele for short beaks is dominant to the allele for long beaks. Short, let's do S represents short, which is dominant in this case, and little s represents long, which is the recessive condition. Show all the different crosses that result in 50% of the offspring having long beaks. Okay, so this is where we have to do probably more than one Punnett square, because we're going to have to do a combination of different parents, because we want to know which combination will produce 50% offspring having long beaks. So what we could do is we could start off with the first cross, okay, where let's try parents. If their parents are big S, and then the other parent is little s, so both homozygous, but homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive parent. Okay, let's do the cross, big S, little s. We do the cross over here, and basically all the offspring are going to be all offspring are 100% short beak. Okay, so this is not going to work to produce 50% of the offspring having long beak. So let's do the next one. So let's try a different combination. So let's try both heterozygous. So that's a mixture of the two alleles. Do the cross, big S, small s, and we're going to have this situation. So we're going to have, again, now we're going to have 25% of offspring are long beaks. Okay, so that's not going to do either. So we have to do another cross. Let's try a different set of parents. So let's try a heterozygous with a homozygous recessive. Let's see if this gives us our 50%. So you do the cross, big S, small s, small s, small s, and there we go. This makes 50%, okay? Have the probability of 50% long beak offspring, okay? And so the question was, which different crosses result? So this is the cross that results in 50% long beak, having 50% long beak offspring. Okay, and the next one. I'm gonna do, all right. All right, number 7. Okay, so Alaskan Malamute dogs, the allele for dwarfism is recessive and the allele for normal sized dogs is capital N. So we're going to do big N, normal sized dogs, and little n is basically dwarfism. Okay, and in these special Alaskan Malamute dogs. 2 normal-sized dogs have 3 puppies. 2 are normal and 1 is dwarf size. What is the genotype for each parent? So, okay, so there are 2, that means both dogs. So the parents have to be, obviously, if they're normal, both of them have to have the big N allele in their genotype, okay? But they produce mostly normal. So 3 puppies are going to be normal and 1 puppy is going to be dwarf size. So we know from doing a few of these now that the heterozygous condition usually produces the 1:2:1 ratio or the 3:1 phenotypic ratio. So let's try that. If I do the cross now between 2 heterozygous parents, let's see what the probability of having those offspring is going to be. So again, so let's do genotypic ratio. Is going to be 1 big N to 2 big N small n to 1 little n. But the phenotypic ratio for the offspring is going to be 3 big N. Oh, and I shouldn't say big N. We should use it's the actual characteristic now. So we're going to have 3 with the dwarfism to 1 what am I doing? Normal, big N represents normal. So we're going to have 3 dogs that are normal to 1 with dwarfism. Okay, so the question was, what is the genotype of each parent? So a genotype of each parent must be big N, big N, small n. Okay, so let's just show both of the parents there. And you can, if you didn't figure this right away, you can do as many crosses as you want with different combinations to find out this type of ratio. Okay, I know by doing these so many times that this heterozygous, when both parents are heterozygous, you're going to get this 3-to-1 phenotypic ratio, and that's what we were looking for, and that's why I did that. B is asking, what are the probabilities of the genotypes and phenotypes for puppies in the next litter from the same parent? Okay, so for the next generation with the same parents, the probability is going to be, well, we'd have to do this this over again. Like we would, depending on the cross, we would have to do different crosses now, okay? So the question again is, what are the probabilities of the genotypes and phenotypes for puppies in the next litter from the same parents? Well, from the same parents, it's going to be the exact same, okay? So the genotypes of next litter will be the same, and that's in terms of probability, okay? Because we would do basically the same thing. If the same parents, same genotypes, they're going to get the exact same, ratios here. Okay, so the genotypes of the next generation will be the same. All right, and let's go on to the next one. Oops. And that's question 8 now. Question 8 is in mice, condition called Waltzer is recessive. So let's say a Waltzer mouse. Okay, so big N is normal. Oops, let me just do this. Normal. And Waltzer is represented by the little allele N. A Waltzer mouse has a defect of the inner ear that interferes with balance and causes mouse to run in circles. A mouse that runs normally is crossed with a Waltzer mouse. Okay, so parents, let's just put that down. So one parent is little n, okay? That's the Waltzer parent. And he or she is crossed with a Waltzer mouth that runs normally. Half of the offspring are Waltzer. That means the half of the offspring have to be normal. So what do you think the parents' genotypes are? Is it big N, or is it going to be big N, little n? Okay, so in order for you to have 50% of the puppies in the next litter having Waltzer, then, and not being most of them being normal, I'm going to assume that the parent is going to have this genotype. And let's check it out. Let's do the cross. So let's do big N, small n. And the other, this is with cross with the mouse that has the Waltzer condition. It's recessive. So we're going to have big N, small n, big N, small n, small n, small n, small n, small n. Okay, so in this scenario, the genotypic ratio is going to be 1 big N, small n to 1 little n, which is 50% big N, small n to 50% little n, okay? And there you go. That's the, and the phenotypic ratio is the same thing. So 50% normal mice to 50% Waltzer mice, okay? And the question was, what are the genotypes of the parents if half of the offspring are Waltzer? So we're talking about half of them being Walzer, right? These ones right here. So this basically definitely would involve that normal parent being a heterozygous or having a heterozygous genotype, okay? Because if you did big N, let's just try and do the big N, big N. If we had that parent instead of the this one right here, we would have pretty much all or 100% normal mice and no Walzer mice at all. So that is definitely not going to be the case, okay? So the parent has to be big and small n. So therefore, genotypes of parents must be big and small n with little n, okay? And that's that question. And we are going to, let's see if I can insert. Oh. I am sorry, I'm trying to add a slide here. Insert. Okay, there we go. And okay, and now question number 9 is 2 pigs of unknown genotype produce a litter of piglets, 6 black and 1 white. If so we know that we're going to have big B, or we're going to use big B, or we're going to use big W, depending on. So it says actually that if the allele for white coat color is recessive to the allele for black coat, okay? So we know black is dominant, so big B is equal to black and little b is equal to what? White. Right in a way we know that. So if the allele for white is recessive to allele for black coat, determine the genotypes of the parents if possible. If it is not possible, what other information do you need? Okay, so let's write down that the litter is going to be 6 black to 1 white. Okay, that's phenotypic ratio. So we can assume that the parents, we know that a heterozygous parents, when they're both heterozygous like that, they usually have a phenotypic ratio. The offspring phenotypic ratio is usually a 3 to 1, okay? So which is probably going to be very similar to this, okay? So let's try, we're going to assume that both parents are big B, small b, and big B, small b. We do the cross, big B, small b, big B, small b. We have this situation. Okay, oops. Little b. Okay, so the genotype ratio, I'm trying to do this as fast because I'm going to lose you guys. I know that. 1 big B to 2 big B small b to 1 small b. And the phenotypic ratio is 3 black to 1 white. Okay? So it's probably, the parents are probably going to be, therefore, parents that were unknown were probably big B and big B. Okay? Now, let me just do a little something in the side here. So if we had, let's say we had, let's see, we had this situation where one parent is homozygous dominant and the other parent is homozygous recessive. The litter is going to be all black. So that is not going to work, right? And then if we have obviously, if we have this situation, all offspring are going to be black. So the heterozygous condition, where both parents are heterozygous, big B, small b, this is the only way that you're going to have a litter that has this mostly 6, or like in this case 6, mostly black offspring to very, very few white offspring. Okay, so this is the most probable, the only genotypes that work. Okay. And let's do the last one. Number 10. Thank you for staying with me, guys. I know it's long. Two plants cross, producing all blue flowers in the F1 generation. When one of the plants was allowed to self-fertilize, the ratio of flowers produced by plants was 3:1, blue to yellow. Since the allele for blue flowers is dominant, so let's just already write that down. Blue flowers is dominant to the yellow flower allele, which we'll represent by little b. Okay. Oops, my writing is horrible. Determine the likely genotype of the parental generation. Okay, so two parents were, so if all the F1 generation, so this is basically the first generation of offspring, are blue, okay, and that means they're dominant. But then the yellow show up in the next generation. The parents must be blue. The parents must be big B times small b, okay? Because when you do that cross, this is where you have all of them. They're all going to be blue. So 100% blue, okay? But when these are allowed to cross, so this was going to be the P2 generation, all right? So this is the P1 generation. P2 would be big B, small b, times big B, small b. And when we know that when we do that, we're going to have a 1 to 2 to 1 genotypic ratio and a 3 to 1 phenotypic ratio. All right, so genotype ratio is 1 big B to 2 big B, small b to 1 small b, and phenotype ratio is 3 blue to 1 yellow. Okay, so since and we know that from the information there that the when one of the plants was allowed to self-fertilize, so this offspring was allowed to self-fertilize, that means the same genotypes. This is what we got over here in a 3:1 ratio. So the question was, determine the likely genotype of the P generation, the parental generation, which is right here. That's what the answer is. Okay, so therefore the likely genotype of the P generation is big B, and with small b. All right, I know this was a very long lesson, but I wanted to go through all of the problems with you because I know that these are very difficult problems for you to figure out. Well, some of you might have figured them out, and that's wonderful, but this takes lots of practice, and usually I do this with you in class. So I wanted to go over this with you. If you have any questions, if you want me to go over anything, again, then please let me know. Don't be shy. I'm happy to help whenever I can, okay? I will talk to you later. Thank you.